Alright, hey everyone, this is a little bit different video. My buddy here, Heller205, sent me a video invite. He's basically thinking about another fantasy army, and he's talking about hippies, or wood elves as we call them here locally. Also talking about Tomb Kings, and talking about Skaven. Well, luckily for Mr. Heller here, I have owned two of those armies, and currently am considering the other army of his three choices as my second army. A little background on me is I've been playing fantasy since 5th edition, so about like 8 years I guess now. And of that 8 years, I've been an army whore. I have owned every army with the exception of Ogre Kingdoms, Empire, Demons, and Tomb Kings. Those are the only armies I have not owned. I've owned all the other ones. Oh, of course, Chaos Dwarves, which no one owns them because GW doesn't really make the models for them anymore or sell the models. So, anyways, I'm going to get Mr. Heller205. I'm going to give you what my thoughts on each one of the armies. These are my thoughts, so you people that agree or disagree, you don't get your panties in a wad because, you know, just because we don't all like the same armies. But I'm going to give him some ups and downs on all of them and go from there. So, hold on and we'll get started here. Alright, Heller205, here's the first army we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about the hippies, or the wood elves. This army, just you probably know this, but I'll give a background for the others. This was the very last army released in 6th edition. This army book was written with the 7th edition rules. They were just like right around the corner after this book was released. So this book, it really is, even though it's a 6th edition army book, it is a 7th edition because, like I said, it was written right before 7th edition came out. Alright. Wood elves. These guys play different than all the other armies. They are your guerrilla warfare kind of army. What that means is they have a lot of skirmishing units. Units that you don't have a lot of static combat res. If you watched my videos on how to play Warhammer, if you remember, static combat res is a bonus to combat for up to +3 for ranks, numbers, standards. Well, the tree spirits, or anything tree, like the Treekin, the Dryads, the Tree Man, they don't have the banners and the ranks and stuff, so they have to work a little bit harder to kill units. They have to either gang up, what most Wood Elf players will do, instead of charging one of your units with one of his units, he'll hit you with 2 of his units because he needs the sheer number of attacks to overcome your static combat res. The Wood Elf, they're fighty characters. You aren't really on the real fighty side. There again, remember, they're guerrilla warfare. They can hit hard, but like typical with most elves is they can't take a punch. They're toughness 3, little or no armor, possibly a ward save. You can give them great weapons and they're fast and they can hit, but like the magic users, okay? Magic for the Wood Elves, unlike the Tomb Kings, who Heller is considering, and the Skaven, it is more supportive. In other words, the spells help the units of the Wood Elves become better in combat and stuff by giving them a ward save and such. Talking about Wood Elves. Wood Elves, of course, are an elite army. Tomb Kings are an elite army. Skaven is a horde army. What does that mean? It won't cost, well, I shouldn't say it won't cost. We all know how expensive Games Workshop is getting. But your elite armies won't cost you as much money. The plastics for the Wood Elves are with the new molding process, so the new plastics look very, very good. And like I said, it's not going to cost you a lot. The Eternal Guard are metal. I had the Wood Elves. They didn't fit my play style. I need the static combat res. These guys are good for running up the flanks, hitting sides of the battlefield, hitting people in the flanks. They have a flying unit that's okay. What their big uber beast, the tree men. This is where their strength really lays. Is these guys can put out some punishment and take some punishment. So the Wood Elves, you know, there are a lot of people that play the Wood Elves. I think it's faded a little bit, just like any other codex. But the Wood Elves have their loyal following. What else can I say? They do get one thing that no other army gets. They get that 1 6-inch wood. You want to put that in the middle of the table to help break up your opponent's attacks. And you can actually move that wood via your spells. No other army can move terrain pieces in this edition. Wood Elves shine at their shooting is just like a typical elf. They have a bow, 30-inch long bow. They don't suffer the -1 penalty to move when they're shooting their longbows. So this makes them a really, like I said, mobile army. They can hit hard, but like all typical elf armies, they cannot take a hit. They usually, if you hit them hard with like heavy cav or something, they're going to crumble. That goes also for the high elves and the dark elves too, for the most part. Yeah, each army has their own units that can take it, but overall, toughness 3 and not much armor. That translates to you don't want to get charged because you can't really take it. Trading army to play against. It'll drive your opponent bonkers. A good Wood Elf player will just make you go insane. Because every time in 7th edition, as we all know, you place terrain in a game, he's going to place nothing but woods, and you want to stay out of the woods basically, because there's magic spells that if you're caught in the woods, they do extra damage, and like I said, these guys rule the wood. Alright, next up is the Skaven. Of all the armies and all the fluff in Warhammer, these guys from the Under Empire are by far my favorite. Excuse me. I had this army. I thought I could control it and not be a power gamer. Well, the Warpstone corrupted me. When you start throwing in all the goodies like Giselles, Warp Lightning Cannon, Rattling Guns, this army, when I had it, was in 6th edition. Was just brutal. I played one game against a buddy of mine, his dwarves. This army, between magic and shooting, outshot the dwarves. I sat back the whole game. He had a dwarven gun line, and it was a pretty boring game. His general finally met my warlord in the middle of the board, and I actually beat him in combat, his unit. That's when I decided to get rid of these guys. When a horde army, whose guys are so cheap at 5 points, and slaves were 2 points, can outshoot a dwarf army, something's wrong. But 7th edition, their rattling guns and warp fire throwers used to have a rule that they couldn't be shot at if they were within 2 or 3 inches of the clan rat unit that they were deployed with. Well, that's no longer the case. They can be picked out. So that sort of tones them things down, unless you play an army that doesn't have any shooting, like vampire counts and stuff. So Heller, these guys, basically, it's, you know, all infantry. You don't have any cavalry. You have, you know, Warp Lightning Cannon for war machines and Giselles. Your characters are cheap. This army is expensive as far as if you're a collector like I am, and you got to have like one of each unit. You know, the Skaven are so cheap point wise that, you know, you can really have to have a lot of models. My typical Skaven army at 2,000 points was between 190 and 220 rats on the field. So their magic is pretty potent. Their Warplock engineers have a magic spell. Well, it's not really a spell. Well, yeah, it is. We'll just call it a spell. It's Warp Lightning. It is a strength 5 hit magic missile, where, you know, most other magic missiles in the game are strength 4 or less. Not too many strength 5s out there. And it comes in 2 versions, 1d6 and 2d6. That's their army rules. The Warlord. He's, you know, if you want leadership, what's crazy is the way their game is set up now, and I expect it to change when their army book comes out. But you add +1 to the unit's